And welcome to the July 21st, 2022 School Committee meeting. I am Amanda Fargiano, the Vice Chair of the School Committee, running the meeting for our Chair, Nancy Kavanaugh, who is joining remotely on the monitor. At this time, I would invite you all, if you can, and you're able to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. At this time, I would open the floor for public comment, if we have any public comments tonight. I do not see any. So we will move on to recognitions and introductions. Dr. Kavanaugh.
Sure. So I would invite Matthew Lefebvre to come on up to the microphone. Matt is our new Hopkinton Middle School principal. I will tell you a little bit about him in terms of his resume. He started his career as a music educator. He's taught both middle school and high school. And for the last decade, he has been the assistant principal at Westboro High School. And so we are thrilled to have him here. And I will let you do a little bit of talking. Why Hopkinton? Why now?
Thanks. Felt like the right time. Obviously Hopkinton has a great reputation for their schools and their community. I do live nearby, so I haven't been job shopping, I guess I would say. And when this opportunity presented itself, like I said, it was the right time, and I'm really excited to be here. I did work at Westboro High from 2004 on, so I've been there for quite a while. Wasn't an easy decision to leave, but the last 2 weeks here, I've really just been exceptional. Everyone that I've met has been super welcoming. It's been really informative. There's a lot of information coming at me quickly, but that's kind of what I expected. So to be working with a small group right now, obviously because it's summer, but a small group of welcoming and positive people at Hopkinton Middle School has just been great. So.
Well, excellent. Welcome. It's funny, people always think, at least parents think, that the summer is a quiet time for administration, but administration, buildings and grounds, there's so much activity in the summer that's critical to setting up the school year. So we're thrilled that you're here so early in this, it was a quick turnaround, and we're grateful to have you. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm just super excited. We've heard a lot about you and all of it positive, so we're really looking forward to your tenure.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I echo that, and I'm happy to hear that your background is in music. I feel like everyone who's involved in music loves being with the music instructor, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of hanging out in the band room going on in a lot of buildings.
Yeah, I think when that culture is established, sure, people
exactly.
feel safe and they can be creative there.
So it's great for the kids. I think we're happy to have
Thanks.
you. Yeah.
So nice to have like a well-grounded view of education. Like music sometimes gets cast aside, but it's so important, and that's something that you're passionate about. I think will do wonders for our middle school students. I've heard wonderful things about Westboro High, so you must have done some good work over there.
I think so. Yes. I definitely think the arts are just such a strong part of the fabric of our school, and really anywhere that kids feel their sense of belonging is super important. And for a lot of them, it's the arts, and for others, it's math. So math also needs to be exciting and welcoming as well. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming. And sorry, Nancy.
I was just going to say welcome. Welcome, and I am excited that you're here, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
I look forward to meeting you in person as well. Thank you.
Poor Nance.
So just one more quick question. So what do you anticipate the first few days of school looking like?
Fasten my seatbelt, right? I expect there to be a ton of energy as kids come back to another year that promises to be more quote-unquote normal. I mean, it's time to get back to who we are, and for me, this is super exciting because thinking about going into next year and reclaiming the strong school culture that had been in Westboro. Now I'm helping a group of people kind of reclaim their culture and identify some, some new things, along the way to be excited about. So I expect it to be fast-paced. I expect students to be all over the place in terms of their level of readiness to get started. Coming back from summer is always quite an adventure. So I'm going to hit the ground running, a lot of listening, a lot of classroom visits, a lot of walking the halls, and making sure that students are, comfortable with me being in their school.
Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything that we didn't ask you tonight?
Yeah, I live in Northborough. I have a wonderful family. My wife Kate is super excited that I'm here and working at a middle school. I have a wildly spirited 7th grade daughter, so that, just on a personal note, that really solidified my decision that this was the right place to come. I watched my older daughter go through a great middle school in Northborough. She's a sophomore in high school, so I have a sophomore, a 7th grader, and a 2nd grader, and they're all girls. So my family means a lot to me, and I think I bring those qualities of being a parent to the job. It's super important to me.
And so you've also seen how the whole break with COVID affected an incoming middle schooler. So you have a really good sense of that.
Yeah, and how it could affect, two older students in the same household incredibly differently. That's important. Like we were really fortunate as a family to provide them with the stable setting for their remote schooling, but we had friends for a variety of reasons that didn't have those same opportunities. But even amongst my own children, seeing them day to day react very differently to those challenges was pretty eye-opening. So yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming tonight. I'm glad that the community and the school committee could get to meet you.
Thank you. Really
Yes.
enjoyed meeting you all.
Thank you.
We'll be seeing you around
Taking
town.
time
Me
on your
too.
Thursday night.
Sure.
We'll
See
see
you
you soon, I'm
again.
sure. Yeah. In fact, good
Yeah, we
luck
look
in those first
forward
weeks.
to hearing your plans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Pat.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, that brings us to reports. Dr. Kavanaugh, Superintendent's report.
Okay. All right, thank you. So this is the superintendent report for July 21st, 2022. I just have a quick update on enrollment. I'm going to share with you some of our summer goings on because, as we said, it seems like schools are very quiet in the summer, but that's really contrary to what's happening. And then an update on the Elmwood project. So that's starting to move along with some momentum now. It's really exciting. So what you see on the screen right now, the top grid is the end of year enrollment, which we would have submitted to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So this would be our June 1st enrollment. And you can see that the total was 4,069 students at that time. I did highlight the pre-K because you'll see that the pre-K is was up to 95 at the end of the school year. And you can also see that in the yellow highlighted boxes, we only have 4 classes left right now in the Hopkinton Public Schools, or we did in June, that were under 300 students in terms of enrollment. So if you fast forward to today, you can see we have now 5 classes that are under 300, but if you look at the 8th grade, it's at 298. I wouldn't be surprised if that hit 300 prior to the start of school. And 1st grade is at 293. So those are pretty close to the 300 mark. And what I did want to point out there is grade 4. Grade 4 currently has 338 students. And what Mrs. Bolello wants people to know is that we already have some of those classrooms right now hitting 25 students. We've had conversations about, could you do something differently? And the truth of the matter is we really can't because there's not physical space to put sort of another classroom into. And the community knows that we just added 4 classrooms not long ago, the modulars, to the Hopkins School. So we are watching those numbers, and one of the things that Mrs. Bolello excels at is really thinking about differentiation of instruction, and a lot of the instruction there is delivered small group anyway, so you don't really have to think about what it looks like when you have 25 kids and a single teacher standing at the front of the room, because there's a lot of movement and a lot of small group instruction. The other number that I wanted you to look at is just the total, so you can see that it's up to 4,118 with kids who are registering now. Now, of course, you could have some kids whose Families have not pulled them off the books yet, but that's exactly where we are today.
One quick question. When I'm looking at these numbers, the June Sims, those are projected numbers for June that we turned in, or they were actuals?
Actuals, yes, that's exactly how many kids were sitting at that grade level at that moment in time.
So do we normally experience a reduction in a lot of grades throughout the summer?
You can, because there'll be kids who move away.
Okay.
And let me take a look. So that 8th to 9th is a little bit unusual, going from 313 to 326, because you lose 8th graders as well. They go to places like Keefe Tech, they go to Norfolk Aggie, they go to private schools.
Okay.
So the top row was last year, so if we want to look at, if we want to look at a cohort, last year's 6th grade is now this year's 7th grade. So the numbers are, right? Is that right?
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
that's
right,
what
so-
confused
right,
me
right,
then.
yeah.
Thank
They're not-
you.
Yeah.
Now that
Right.
makes more sense
Right.
when I look at it in the diagonal.
So we lost 294 12th graders, and next year we'll have 317, so we're up.
Okay.
Whatever that math equals, 17 and 6.
Okay.
So
23
the
kids.
4th grade really didn't grow as much as it appeared. They only gained 7 new students.
Right.
Right,
Right.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It took me a second to
It's a different
understand.
structure at
40-something
Hopkins with the
kids.
teams,
Yes.
the way,
They work in their national
Yeah.
parks teams, but they also have what they call switch teachers. So
Right.
my classroom and your classroom might work super closely together, and
right.
a lot of small group, 2 teachers, oftentimes a paraprofessional or special educator, so the tutors, so they do mix it up.
I should probably know these numbers, but the 4,118, that seems like a big jump already. And I'm wondering if we have a feeling, are we above or below projections?
Oh, I would have to go back and look.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I have that in front of me.
Oh, excellent.
Can I ask, and I apologize because I can't see the
I'm
the
sorry.
fine print on the monitor from where I am, but do you know what we were at last summer at this point? Like, if we were at, like, if we might figure we're going to lose some potentially to move, or, either moving out of the district or going to private or Keefe Tech or whatnot, how high were we last summer at this time?
We would have to look at,
Okay.
I would love to look at the June Sims, which is June 1st. So really, these numbers are only about 50 days old. We've only advanced 50 days, I should say. But it would be interesting to look at where we were in 2021 with the June Sims, and then where we were somewhere in mid-July last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's almost a kid a day, though, in terms of growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
One
it.
student a day, almost.
It's a very large jump
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
month.
And so to put this in perspective for your eyes in terms of budgeting, we budgeted for 4,078 for the 23 school year. So we're at 4,118 right now. So if several students don't move out, we're already way ahead of students in terms of what we actually budgeted for.
Yeah. Nancy, did you have a question?
Typically, we get more in August anyway, correct? Well, like more incoming kindergartners in particular, people who've moved in over the summer,
That
that
does
might not
happen.
register until closer, yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. So you'll have people who might move into Hopkinton today, and when it gets to be like August 1st or August 7th, they'll say, oh, we should go register the kids for school. And that's when they do it. So there'll be a couple of weeks in August where it gets heavy.
Do we have, oh, sorry.
Oh, I mean, I was just gonna probably ask something similar, like mitigation plans, like, if we end up, I mean, this is already, even though they're spread out, right, it's already basically 2 classrooms of children above what we had projected. So if we get a rush normally at the beginning of August, what would our mitigation strategy be to try to support it?
So it's very hard K-5 because you establish classrooms, and the teachers think really, and the principals think very hard about placement. Kids are placed because of their learning profile, they're placed because of their peer groups, they're placed because they have special education or English learner or academic different needs. And so it would be exceedingly rare to ever, I guess for lack of a better word, kind of blow up someone's schedule now.
And even looking at, again, the number, knowing it's going to go up, what is our capacity for transportation? I mean, do we have, like, is there some number where we know our 30X buses, 32, 31, 33 buses, whatever we have now, aren't going to be enough?
Well, we're close. What's happened is we still have about 120, 130 students still sitting in pre-registration that have not come over into transportation. So we need people to finish their registrations. So this is a public cry. Please get your documentation in. So until we get all that in and pull them into transportation. So, you know, the good thing is typically they're kind of all over town. If we get large pockets in one area, then we will have to start trying to pull stops and move them around. But it's right now our capacity looks to be okay.
Okay.
But please finish your registration.
Now, people have often asked what happens to our 8th graders who choose not to come to Hopkinton High School. And so I just included this slide. You can see 19, 20, 2021, 21, 22, and then this year. So there's not a lot of variation from year to year. In 1920, we had 9 kids go to private schools, the next year 11, the next year 11, and then this current year we're at 5. Norfolk, we've had 1 student in 1920, 1 the next year, none in 21, 22, and then 1 this year. Keefe, it was 5, 5, 6, and now this year there's a nice bump up to 9. And the state statute says that although Keefe is our vocational technical school, if there's a program Keefe doesn't have, but another of the vocational technical schools does have it, we are in fact obligated to allow our student to go to that school. And so you can see that we've had a couple of kids who've gone to Blackstone Valley Tech and then a couple of kids who've gone off to Assabet. But the total numbers down at the bottom, 16, 18, 17, 15, feel pretty consistent. All right, just a few of the things that are going on. You know, we have a whole group of new hires. Jeff Lebrad, an assistant superintendent, Kylie Murray, athletic director, Matt Lefebvre, whom you met tonight, middle school principal. Michelle Tynan is the new Elmwood assistant principal, and we actually have a soon-to-be named HMS assistant principal. We are in negotiations with that person, so I did not want to list a name until the ink is dry on the contract. In terms of professional learning, we have right now 60 curriculum writing projects, and so those are very often done in teams and like by departments or grade levels, and so I am thrilled to see that many. It's an indication of how hard our teachers are working this summer as well. We have restorative justice training that will take place on August 11th and 12th. The administrative retreat is the 16th and 17th. Mentor training is the 22nd. And new teacher orientation the 23rd and 24th of August. And then finally, in terms of student learning, we have our special education ESY, the extended school year. That's Dr. Zaleski's program. We also have a program called Focus, Fun Opportunities to Connect, Understand, and Succeed. And that's something that sort of Mrs. Parson began for us, and Deb Moriarty sort of oversees that program. And then we also have an ESOL Summer Acceleration Academy for some of our English learners, and that is Jen Suker's program.
Can I say I'm really excited about the restorative justice training? Like that's
Yes, that's great.
super exciting.
Yeah, because we did the administrators like last year, so now we're actually starting to get teacher leaders trained in that. Just a quick update on the Elmwood School project. You've seen some of these dates before. The MSBA approved our OPM on April 4th. Then we went out with an RFS for designer selection. We just recently had our meeting with the MSBA on that, so we had 3 designated members from Hopkinton. I was one of them, Tiffany Ostrander and Mike Shepard, so we are all members of the Elementary School Building Committee 2. And so we went to a virtual meeting with the MSBA, and we, on July 19th, so just a couple of days ago, chose 3 companies who have become finalists to be our designers, and those are Arrow Street, Perkins Eastman, and Drummy Rosane and Anderson. On August 2nd, we're going to be reviewing those companies, and hopefully in August, we will be executing a contract with the designer. If you're wondering what that interview looks like, we are limited to 5 questions, and so what we're going to be asking the potential providers about are net zero energy, environmental and sustainability goals, the design for the sort of unique character of Hopkinton in the natural environment of the school setting. So when you did not design that building, it should be sort of for us. Grade reconfiguration, traffic mitigation, and then the MSBA requires you to have a question about systems choices. So for example, HVAC, lighting, those kinds of questions. So the good news is that once we get our designer in place, we will be entering into feasibility. And that will last from September of 2022 through June of 2023. And that's really where the big work and the community engagement begins. So we are going to be having lots of public forums and inviting people to come and learn and talk with us about sort of what your hopes and dreams are in terms of an Elmwood either renovation or rebuild. And so we'll be documenting our educational program, thinking about space, thinking about existing conditions, establishing design parameters, developing and evaluating all of the alternatives. What will it look like? Where will it go? How many kids? All that. Recommending, and then finally we'll recommend the most cost-effective and educationally appropriate preferred solution. We'll make that recommendation to the MSBA, and the MSBA must approve our preferred solution so that we can advance to schematic design. So people in the community should be watching for next steps in September. That's very important work. And that's all I have for you.
Are there questions?
I feel like I asked him as you were going. I didn't wait for the question phase.
Nancy, do you have any questions?
No, that was great.
I just have one question. The 5 questions for the interview include the grade reconfiguration.
Yes.
What does that look like from a designer's response perspective versus, our perspective as a community?
Yeah, the question really for them is what experience do you have with a project that has had grade reconfiguration?
Okay, great. I'm excited to get to the next phase of work and get the community involved and dig in. It'll be great. Thank you. Okay, Nancy, we are now up to the chair report.
Okay, so payroll warrants S22027, S22BAL, and S23001 have been approved. Operating warrants 22057, 22058, 22059, 22060, 22061, 22062, 23001, 23002, and 23003 have been approved, and a copy of the warrants is included in the package. The other thing that Amanda and I had talked earlier this week about the listening tour that we had, people who are watching maybe remember last year that we did a listening tour. We did I think 8 sessions last year. Our focus was on a bunch of different things. This year we were looking to do different topics. One of the things that Amanda and I had discussed was breaking it into more of an age group kind of a thing. So doing one that would be like birth to pre-K age kid parents of those families to get a little bit of their perspective on what is important to them in terms of our facilities, what kinds of capabilities they want to see, and then doing the same, doing the birth to pre-K is one listening series, and then the next one doing the kindergarten to 5, and then doing like the middle school age, and then the high school, and then doing the same kind of talking about our facilities and how our facilities are meeting people's needs, what they'd like to see, and how it's, what pieces pop out in the hopes that this information that is a two-way conversation with them will help us as we're looking not just at budget, but also as we're looking potentially at campus planning and looking at a very large project ahead of us. So that was the kind of the vision that we had discussed. I did want to hear kind of what other people, how that sounds to you. we were looking at Sunday evenings in August, starting with the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and then the 28th, and then doing potentially a Saturday, the Sunday ones would be virtual, a Saturday one at Fruit Street that we could maybe do a pop-up tent on a soccer day and try to catch some people there differently. And then we were talking about, it was kind of a carryover from our last school year, doing one that would include students. And we were looking to try to maybe go on the day the high school students have their photos taken, so that we would potentially catch some kids there, and then working with our student reps to try to get the word out and see what is important to kids in terms of talking.
So in
Any
terms of
thoughts?
I like the Sunday thing.
Yep.
I think one of the things that was really sort of tiring last year is that it was twice a week.
Yes.
So spreading it out over a longer period, especially in the summer when you're having lots of vacation and stuff like that, I think makes a lot more sense. So I really appreciate that, and I think it's a really interesting thought to go by age group. I think that makes sense. There are definitely so many different concerns, and I, for one, have university students now. So, remembering what it was like to worry about pre-K and kindergarten, it's so far away that it would be really nice to hear from parents.
It would, and I think that those are parents that typically, unless they have older children in the district, maybe have not had an opportunity to think about what it is that is going on in our schools, and to try to draw them in and get their voices right from the get-go, and hope that they continue to follow us along and share their opinions with us as their kids go through the system.
I have two thoughts.
Yeah.
The first one is, when the committee did this last year, did you do it in the summer? Was it over the
Yes.
summer?
We did, but last summer we did twice a week, which was really ambitious.
Mhm.
We did
That sounds
Sundays
ambitious.
and Tuesday evenings, I think.
Okay. I mean, does it make sense? Where I was going was, does it make sense? A lot of folks are on vacation. Does it make sense to wait until September, or is that too late for the information that we want to try and get? So that's part one.
Yeah,
Because part two was, my second point was, so to talk to some of the students and the community is great. Do we want to give, this is a question, do we want to give teachers an opportunity to be a part of this too? And if so, then does it make sense to wait till September? Because they aren't necessarily around. And even if they are around, they're not thinking about the listening tour right now. They're thinking about next year. So to wait
right.
Until they're settled.
Yeah. But that might throw a wrench in the works if the summer is the target for when you want the information. So those are my thoughts.
Question for you, Jen. When you talk about including the teachers, do you mean including them in the existing groupings that we have, or doing a separate one for teachers?
That's a good question. I wasn't thinking that, but maybe it does make sense to have them included in the grade level, or maybe they want their own voice separate from.
I think if you include the teachers with the parents, you might get
That's
parents not wanting to speak or teachers not
Maybe,
wanting to speak.
yeah.
Because you want both groups to feel free to speak their mind, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, if you did all the parents during the summer, you could always start the year with the teachers, we could go through teachers by school.
right.
I don't know if you are a teacher, so you would have more insight.
I always have thoughts, but I guess wanting to know sort of what information we're hoping to get from the community, on which specific topics, or is this wide open? And if it's wide open, then it kind of makes sense to me to open it up to the teachers as well, just to hear their thoughts. Yeah. And even if it is on specific things, it may be things that they do have input for us. So,
Just to add more content to what Nancy and I had talked about in thinking about age groups, we were thinking the most pressing community message that we need to hear quickly, for this year is around the campus. And so
Okay.
I think
Like configurations?
yes, and
the
the
plan.
challenges and programming, because programming is reflected in the campus as well, or just to sort of hear, it would be a two-way conversation, a chance for us to share what is on the horizon for, as Dr. Kavanaugh pointed out, will be upcoming public forums, just to kind of wet the whistle and get people focused, but also to start that conversation around what are you thinking, and by doing age groups, it doesn't have to be limited to that topic, but it's an opportunity to cover a little bit of that topic and then hear what else is facing preschool parents or middle school parents. There's been administrative turnover, so that there's change afoot at the middle school. How are parents feeling? What are they concerned about? At the high school, whatever. So not limiting it to campus planning type topics, but having that be a piece of it to start to get that conversation going.
Okay.
So one question then, last year's listening tour, we were not supposed to have conversation, right? It was more like an office hour in that sense. We listened, but because there were sometimes three of us in a room, we were not supposed to be. So are we going to be posting this as a meeting and taking?
We did actually post it last summer as a meeting
Okay. Okay.
to allow all of us to be there.
And we're not, I don't mean, we're deliberating, but even sharing the slide that Dr. Kavanaugh just shared as an opening, we don't have a lot of meat, but just to say, this is what's happening. If you're a preschool family, you probably haven't been at all connected to what's happening, much in the schools. And so it was a thought. The August, last year, the summer time frame was intended to help us, sort of focus our work a little bit and make sure that we had time to address a few things that came up, like the social worker, I think, Becky was mentioned. There were some other things that came up in the listening tour. So, I don't know. We do them remote so that they're not in person, and
Okay.
it allows people to not have to worry about childcare. And we could do them in person, but we were talking about doing them remote.
Yeah, okay.
So
maybe it wouldn't matter.
It would be accessible to everybody.
Well, I don't think there's a reason we couldn't do it in September if people feel like that would be a better time for the community in terms of people's availability.
Yeah, I don't want to throw a wrench in the works, but that was just
Hey, well, no,
thinking
I
about
think
folks
Rich,
being
this is just sort of
away.
the beginning thoughts on it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm open to either. It's fine. I think it's a great idea.
I like the idea of separating it by child development stage too. There's always that little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems, so you're kind of allowing people to speak where they are, if as opposed to calling out specific vulnerable groups, Maybe they'd feel safer among parents of other small children, like my kid's having this problem. I guess there's also some comfort among peers, right? If you hear that somebody's having a certain issue or a certain problem, and you see another parent, then it kind of discussing those with us can be, empowering if you have people that come together. I think that was a bit of a stream of consciousness on my
All right.
How do you feel about, I'm curious, do you think September, would it be at October? Do you think September, I feel like September's a very chaotic month.
Yeah.
It is.
So I almost think maybe
Yeah.
October.
Like 2-3 weeks in.
When do you want this information? Like you said, it's really important for the things that are upcoming. The information we collect, when would you have it ideally? What would be your deadline for collecting this? Or you don't have one?
I don't think we have a deadline.
Okay.
Amanda, because this is ongoing work in terms of the facilities, that's gonna be going on. We need it before the end of the school year for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like it would help inform some of the campus planning that's gonna happen, but that's not gonna be in September or even October. I think October might be, we might be better off crossing out September and either doing October or August. I think I'd be happy with either one. It might feel a little bit like we have a little bit more time with people not being on vacation. in October, so I'm open to that too.
I'm glad you said, I mean, I was thinking October originally, but I didn't want to push you forward 2 months, so I mean, it's true, September's crazy, so I think that it does make more sense, I'm with you.
And at the end of the day, this is basically office hours, but
Yeah.
with a little bit of framing so that people can feel like they're going to find their cohort at a session, and the discussion can be a little more free-form among the participants. So it's not, there's no specific agenda, but just to provide an opportunity, to share if there's a slide or something that we want to frame with, or make sure we can share, but mostly it's listening.
And
It's a way to market it too, so that we try to bring in people that, like if we're specifically targeting a group, they feel maybe more invited if we're saying, hey, preschool families, or hey, middle school families or whatnot.
for me, August is hard, but at the same time, that social worker came out of August, right? Like, we had that discussion, and we managed to, Dr. Kavanaugh made a change by the beginning of the school year that was extremely positive because of the feedback we got in August. So, like, part of me is like, stressing at the idea of like every Sunday in August, and plus the school committee meetings, and so October sounds better that way. But just the fact that we managed to get in kind of a critical change that we had heard about from parents who really needed it at the beginning of the school year by doing it in August, it balances the scales. Like it's a hard thing for me to have a strong opinion on, because I'm worried that what if something like that comes out? Like, what if there's an issue with facilities that we could get fixed by September, right? When people walk in, or they
can't do anything else before September.
Nothing's going on. Or if there's, some kind of like, if we had this, this little bit of extra support somewhere in, K through 5 or whatever, and we could actually implement it by the beginning of the school year, that would be amazing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
It's hard.
I agree with you.
So, since this is a schedule, we're talking about a scheduling issue, that this is an exemption to the open meeting law, that we could have the scheduling piece of this offline.
Okay.
So that people can think about it for a little bit. We don't have to make a decision right now.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Anything
Thank
else in your chair report, Nancy?
I got nothing else.
Okay. Are there any liaison reports?
No.
Go ahead. No.
I don't have
I did go to the Sustainable Green Committee meeting, and they were actually very interested in the fact that we have a composting on our agenda for tonight. And I think they were intending to watch our meeting. They also did ask if there are members who are interested in understanding how the ESPC2 is going to consider sustainable initiatives or sustainability as part of how do they plug into that? How do they track that? I don't know if the meetings are recorded or if there's any.
The ESPC2 meetings?
Yeah.
They're public
Yeah, they are.
meetings.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So I will pass that on.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. We are on to new business. We have the high school composting initiative. Do we have somebody here for high school composting, perchance?
do.
Come on up. You can sit right
It's
over
like we
here.
originally had 3 names. Now we've got
Yes,
2,
one of us
so
unfortunately couldn't make it today.
not to worry. We're thrilled to have you. Mrs. Tice has really given you like so many accolades. She's built you up. So thank you. I can advance your slides, you just tell me when. Okay?
And if you could just introduce yourselves too.
Yes. So, hello. Thank you so much for having us. We're really, really grateful for your time. My name is Alice Potapov.
I'm Avni Daga, and as we just said, our third member, Alvina Isan, wasn't able to make it today.
But we are a dedicated group of seniors who are passionate about sustainability, and as such, we would love to implement a school-wide composting initiative. Next slide.
So So if you're unfamiliar, compost is a mixture of ingredients, specifically organic materials and plant and food waste, which when decomposed can be used to fertilize and improve the soil. So how is this relevant to us? Well, a lot of the food waste we produce on a daily basis in the cafeteria can be diverted from the trash bin to compost. So healthy food waste like fruits and vegetables, as well as meat and a lot of other things, can be disposed of through compost rather than ending up in the trash. And as I just said, once all of this breaks down, it can be used to fertilize plants instead of ending up in a landfill. So you might be more familiar with recycling, which is a similar concept in that they're both ways to more sustainably get rid of the waste we're producing. But obviously the big difference is that recycling targets paper and glass and other man-made wasteful materials, while composting targets food waste.
So why are we here? Well, we think composting will better HHS both in terms of sustainability and community. As we just said, composting targets food waste, and currently at HHS there isn't really a school-wide effort to reduce food waste, at least coming from the students. And the number of students, you guys talked a lot about it at HHS, has been steadily increasing over the past few years, with this trend continuing in the future. So naturally the amount of waste we produce will also increase. And in an effort to divert as much waste as possible while also cultivating an environmentally conscious student body, we believe that we should begin to more seriously address our ever-increasing waste as a school, and a great place to start is compost.
So a 2021 study from Penn State found that in U.S. schools, 27 to 53% of the food served to students is wasted. And what's more is that close to 50% of this waste is fruits and veggies, meaning that 50% of the food in the cafeteria that is wasted could be composted instead of thrown away. And while we weren't able to find statistics specific to HHS on this topic, we can probably all assume that it is just as urgent of an issue here as it is in the rest of the country. So with the HHS student population only growing with years to come, the sheer amount of food waste that we produce will become more of an issue than it already is, to which composting is a great solution. And we also know that as a community, Hopkinton really values sustainability, so reducing food waste aligns with our priorities as a town. But it obviously doesn't really make sense to consider composting if our school menu doesn't allow for it. So we know that a huge amount of our student body is utilizing and dependent on the food served in the cafeteria, so it is important to consider the compostability of our lunch menu. Looking at our school menu last year, it seems like a lot of the items served were in fact compostable. So just to name a few, we had a lot of meat served, some baked goods, sandwiches, pasta, fruits and veggies, pizza, and a lot of other items. So with a significant percentage of our existing lunch menu being compostable already, the barrier for entry to composting is significantly lowered. So it makes sense to kind of just adopt this practice.
On another note, with the climate crisis posing more of a global problem and forcing our generation to take on the responsibility of responding to it, we feel that implementing a composting program at the high school will make the student body more educated and eco-conscious group of students who will grow up to make responsible decisions when it comes to sustainability. And additionally, we hope to foster an environment that strikes up conversations about sustainability, which will ultimately help students make smarter and greener choices once they leave high school. A school-wide composting initiative also has the potential to be a really great way to unite our student body under a common responsibility and goal. I know we as a school district really value a sense of community and togetherness, and we believe a composting initiative can contribute to the sense of community.
But of course, the biggest question is how we can make this happen. So we think that the easiest way to implement this initiative would be to partner with a company known as Black Earth Compost. So this is a company that operates a lot like a trash or recycling pickup service. The only difference is that it's obviously for compost. Black Earth Composting is popular in the area already, and it's pretty reliable. In Hopkinton, there are already 200 households that have their compost picked up by these trucks, and the company is also known for their work with schools. So one of their biggest successes has been in Lexington Public Schools, where all the schools in their districts, not just their high school, has a composting program in place.
So just some general information on their service. Black Earth would provide us with compost bins and all of the materials that we would need to collect the compost. They would come to collect it as much as 2 to 3 times a week, really depending on the amount we actually produce. And in terms of money, the school would have to pay $120 a week for around 1,200 students, which would add up to roughly $5,000 a school year. Next slide. So these are some lists of eligible and ineligible items for compost provided by Black Earth on their website. So as we highlighted before, according to these lists, most of our school menu is compostable in the eyes of Black Earth. So you can see meats, seafood, fruits and vegetables, all types of grains, and a lot of other items are all accepted as compost by Black Earth.
So, as we mentioned earlier, Lexington is a school district that has successfully implemented a composting program in all their schools, not just their high school, and their success is really highlighted on Black Earth's website. So, we decided to reach out to them for more information on their program, to learn from them and get their advice on how we can implement it here. So for reference, Lexington High School has around 2,400 students, which is twice the size of ours. So obviously because of the amount of students there, the amount of waste they were producing was also huge. And because of that, they were required to divert some of the waste they were producing. And one way they're doing that is through composting. And the team in charge of composting there is a town group of adults known as the LPS Green Teams.
And I'm going to describe just a general idea of what their functioning composting program looks like on a daily basis. Empty compost bins are wheeled in each day before lunch, and full bins are wheeled out to their storage area after the last lunch of the day. And then the full bins are then placed outside for Black Earth in their pickup area, making sure they don't sit outside for more than around 48 hours before being emptied. And about once a month, the bins do need to be rinsed out with water and a bit of cleanser to prevent smells, or whenever there are leaks in the liners, which can happen sometimes. And in terms of mobilizing students to actually compost, as you can see in these images, they have a lot of signage to remind students of what can be disposed of in each bin.
Next slide. So our goal here in Hopkinton would be to replicate Lexington's success. We've worked with Ms. Tice and Mr. Person over the past year to, as well as some experts like representatives from Black Earth, to come up with a plan. So our hope would be to set up compost bins that are wheeled into the cafeteria during first lunch and then wheeled out during fourth lunch. And then we'd plan to store them in the storage space behind the cafeteria as per Mr. Person's suggestion. And then from there we would have the bins wheeled out for Black Earth on the day of pickup so that they can pick it up, and then we'll be looking for guidance on where that can happen. And then also initially Lexington schools started with 1 day per week of composting, and they said that that worked really well, so we would like to try that as well to kind of ease into the process and make sure everything is running smoothly. And then lastly, we would also obviously be cleaning the bins when necessary and working on signage to make it clear to students how the composting works. So while Lexington has a designated town group, as we mentioned, that is responsible for running the composting program in their schools, we would love to have our program be completely student-run and make sure that the existing lunch and custodial staff don't have to take on any additional responsibilities. But knowing that the longevity of this program is obviously a concern, we've come up with a few different ways to ensure that the program can be upheld long-term by the student body.
And a major player in this program would be a partnership with NHS, or National Honor Society. We plan to make the various responsibilities, which we'll get into shortly, as volunteer opportunities, eligible to count towards the required hours. This is incredibly valuable as NHS admits a large group of students on a rolling basis, so there will always be a group of students available for recruit. Additionally, there's always a large group of NHS students who need to get hours last minute, and with composting being a daily activity, it's an incredibly accessible volunteer opportunity as opposed to others that are on more specific dates. And our third member, Alvina, she is an NHS officer and would be working to make composting an expectation for NHS members, and would also be training the junior officers in what goes into the compost program, and making sure they're ready to continue the project when we leave, and training the next set of junior officers. Next slide. Or this one, yeah. First and foremost, the success of this program will be rooted in educating HHS students about the fact that this is even happening and how they can contribute. This means making posters, announcements, signage in your bins, and a lot more. We hope to design these items ourselves, and as well as partner with the talented Graphic Design Club, Environmental Club, and really any volunteers who might be interested. Another important factor in our success is making sure the right stuff ends up in the correct bins. For students, this will come with practice. We didn't know how to recycle 8 years ago, but now we're all pros, and the same can be true for composting. Of course, signs in your bins will be posted to help kids figure out what goes where, but for the first few weeks and months of the school year, we will also plan to have volunteers situated near the compost bins serving as surveillance. This would include the three of us, our friends, any NHS volunteers, and anyone who'd like to help.
A big part will also be storing and emptying the bins in the cafeteria. With so many NHS volunteers available to us and people in need of hours, as well as the three of us and our friends, we're certain that we can get a lot of people to help with this. All they would need to do is take the first 5 minutes of lunch to wheel the bins into the cafeteria, or the last 5 minutes of fourth lunch to wheel the bins into the storage area. And lastly, we also need to be making sure to communicate with Black Earth to make sure everything is running smoothly. So as of right now, this is our job, but we will be training some underclassmen next year, or in the coming year, to take care of that once we leave. But also, when we're off at college, HHS will still be near and dear to us, so we'd be happy to help out with composting in any way we can.
We won't hold you to that.
Next slide. So, as a reminder, the main reasons we believe HHS should compost is to reduce food waste, which is doable with our already compostable menu, as well as build a community of more eco-conscious and responsible students. The most comprehensive option for establishing this initiative would be to work with Black Earth Composting, who would provide us with all the necessary materials and services for roughly $5,000 a school year. And the most significant factor to this entire initiative is, of course, that it needs to be student-run. When establishing the logistics of this initiative, our biggest priority was keeping it in the hands of students, so as to not add responsibilities to staff that is already doing so much for us.
So thank you so much for your time, and we would love to hear your questions or suggestions, as we really do value your advice and expertise. Thank you.
So before we turn to questions, I just want to congratulate you on an excellent presentation. Very, very thorough, well-researched, well-presented, and it's a great topic and timely for our discussion. So thank you so much for all the work just to get here. Committee members.
I
questions?
am so excited. You guys have answered pretty much every question I had within your presentation, because I was worried about the extra staff work. And you touched on something that just made me completely brighten, which is one of the concerns I have a lot with the NHS volunteering, is that, there are students whose parents work 2 jobs, who can't afford to get a vehicle, right, etc. And so volunteering opportunities are very difficult for those students. Being able to volunteer within the school is just a wonderful opportunity that will make NHS more accessible to a lot of people that might not otherwise be able to join it. So that's super exciting to me.
So I'll echo everything they already said. I think that you both did a fantastic job presenting and clearly did your homework, and Mr. Person's nodding his head as you were talking. So, you got some buy-in on that end, which is excellent too. I do have one question for you, and if you don't know the answer, maybe we can find out. Do you know if we send all of this stuff to Black Earth Composting, does it come back around at all in terms of fertilizing the gardens or any of the landscaping or anything like that?
Sure.
Too?
So there is an option where you can give the compost, and they give you they basically have a company that provides you with soil from the compost they collect, and there's an option that you can buy that from them.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily inherent
it's not part of that.
in them
Okay.
picking it up.
All right, that's cool. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to working for you both, because you make presentations, and I've worked for a lot of companies, and it was clear and straightforward, and you answered everybody's questions before they even had to ask them. And I was so happy watching the whole thing. And I was oh, I can't wait till these high schoolers are saving us from ourselves. Excellent, thank you.
And I just have a couple of questions. Sorry, Nancy. I forget to go ahead, Nancy.
You go first.
I was looking up, we're personally looking at composting, so I was already kind of familiar with Black Earth, but looking at the school case studies that they post and looking at Lexington, they mentioned that Lexington's lunch trays are compostable. Is that something that we are in a position to do? Or are our lunch trays compostable yet?
They are not.
Okay.
Are they washable though, or no?
They are not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Marathon is the only school that has a dishwasher that we have washable trays.
Okay.
The remaining trays are disposable, and they are not compostable at this time.
Yeah. That's something that we definitely talked about and would be a really great kind of addition to this whole program, and really just kind of tie everything together. But yeah, I think as of right now, we don't have compostable trays.
But I think that Black Earth also has some way to provide for those. I think we'd have to pay for them or something, but they do have a side thing that we could get compostable trays from them, I think.
I have to double check that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the longevity, I love the idea, as Leah had said, about connecting with NHS. I do know that NHS is juniors and seniors. So I guess I'm wondering if there's also another group, if there's maybe the environmental club. Is there any opportunity for our younger students to also engage, or would it just be for juniors and seniors?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually did talk about making a composting club, because there is an environmental club, but they do a lot of like presentations about really everything. But we were hoping to have like a more focused group just on the composting program and like teaching about compost and how to get involved in the program at school. So that's definitely something we talked about, and creating a group for all high schoolers, not just juniors and seniors.
So currently, would it be a club? Would there be an advisor? Or is Mr. Person the advisor?
So currently, it's not a club, but I think that if we were able to make a club for it, we'd probably ask Miss Tice to be the advisor, because she's been pretty involved in the whole process as well. And then also, the environmental club, they were pretty willing to help with it. Obviously, like, they'd need to find out whether their club members can volunteer for it. But then there's also another gardening club that recently started last year, I think. I think they're pretty popular. So we'd love to reach out to them as well to see if we can coordinate with them.
I love that it's student run. For longevity reasons, having had 2 kids go through the high school and get involved in things and then not get involved in things, it's nice to have an adult who's an advisor. So I guess I'd throw that out there for your consideration. Nancy, what would you like to say?
So just a question, and I apologize because sometimes the audio gets a little funky for me, so I may have misunderstood this, but sounds like you're starting out with 1 day a week with the compost was the model. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that was definitely something we would probably do, just because it like really eases people into the process instead of just like throwing people into it without really knowing what they're doing.
Sure, that makes total sense, and I love how much information you provide. My one question is the $5,000, would that be for the once a week, or would that be for when it goes to full out to 5 times a week?
I'm pretty sure, that's a really good question.
So even if we go 5 times a week, I think they'll still be picking up like 2 to 3 times a week at most. And I think their cost is for the whole week, it will be $120. It doesn't matter how many times they pick up.
Okay, so it wouldn't matter if is the 1 day a week, the days that you're collecting the compost, or the days you're having it taken from the high school?
I think we're saying 1 day a week to have students compost in the cafeteria, and then it would also just be 1 day a week for them to pick up, because we wouldn't have enough to have it be 2 to 3 days.
Okay. I guess the only thing I would wonder is if would be an increase in cost if it went to 5 days, because the volume would be more of what you would be collecting.
So I think the cost that they came up with for 1,200 students is based on the volume of compost that they would be producing. So maybe if we're only doing 1 day a week, the amount is so small that it wouldn't be that much. But
yep. Okay, that makes sense. I agree with everybody else. You guys did a really great job with a thorough presentation. It's exciting to see this coming forward from students. So, thank you.
I know as well, Black Earth is currently running with Hopkinton an initiative to get 300 families to sign up, at which point the price point drops for residential use. So do you have any idea if our school signs on, if that would count toward our 300 families, or?
I think it would. We talked with them on the phone a couple times, and I think it's like by town, and just I think especially if it's like a larger organization like a school or a business, I think that might count towards it, but I would have to double check that.
Yeah.
But I don't see why it wouldn't. So.
If I could just add, I think our next steps are probably going to be to get this company in so we can sit down and have a conversation about the logistics and kind of really nail things down. We'll better understand the cost at that point, days of pickup, what day makes sense to pick up, what day makes sense for us to compost. So I think there's still a little bit of work left to do to make sure the program's going to run smoothly. But Ms. Tyson and I will be involved with this company as we move forward, because obviously we're not going to ask the students to sign a contract unless they're willing to do that.
That does lead me to one other question, which is, you mentioned that getting the compost is like a side thing. I've looked into it too, and I thought like for families anyways, you get like 2 bags back or something for what you do. Like, it seems like we're paying for them to take stuff, and they're gonna benefit from creating the compost, and we're not getting that back.
Yeah, so I would say that's probably something we'll work through as well. We're not really sure. We talked in a couple of meetings that we had over the school year about what would we do with the compost. So I had mentioned to this group that, you know, we have flower beds at the elementary schools that, you know, I'm not sure how much, so we still have a little figuring out. I'm not sure how much compost or how much soil our compost will produce
Right.
to tell us how much we would get back,
Right.
how long it takes for us to get that back.
Right.
I think our expectation is, you know, we want our own compost back if we do it. We don't want another community's compost back. So I think there's just still some questions that we need to answer, and whatever if it turns out to be a lot of compost that we can't use, I think we can donate, was I think part of the conversation we had. So I think we just kind of need to close the loop with
Okay.
with the group on some of these questions, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I bet the gardening club would be really excited too.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's also a very full circle moment for them
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
So I know there's not a motion here tonight, so I think we're all thrilled that that you guys are looking at sustainability and composting. And I think, you know, would it be appropriate for us to hold off on any vote for the money, or be until we know what it is, or do you want what is it that you would like tonight?
I think if they're going to pay for this, it may come from the co-curricular budget.
Okay, so
There wouldn't be any additional motion for you.
Okay, so we don't need to like approve a club stipend or anything.
Right now, they're not presenting it as a club stipend
Right.
position. So that's something that, you know, the high school administration would bring forward.
Okay. So there's no motion for this.
No?
Can we make an applause motion?
Great job, great job.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for all your hard work too.
I'm curious if you guys went to Nature's Classroom in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Did your Nature's Classroom talk about reducing the food waste at your meals? I know that was a big part of
Yeah, we
when my
had
son-
like the ORT report.
The ORT report,
Yeah.
exactly. And I feel like I'm going full circle back to the ORT report, which when my sons came back, I thought, of course, why aren't we trying to reduce the waste from our own meals? And here you're making it happen, so.
Yeah, and actually Nature's Classroom did a really good job of like gamifying it and like being like, we made this much yesterday, let's do more. It was like, it was a lot of fun, so we could definitely do something similar.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
That brings us to Dr. Zaleski, Transition Program for Non-Resident Students. Please come on up and join us. Thank you for waiting through the agenda.
No problem, it was exciting. Lots of good stuff.
Right. So thank you for having me. Tonight I wanted to present to you some exciting things that are happening in our 18 to 22 program and why I'm here. So for those of you that might be watching tonight and are not familiar with our program, our 18 to 22 program is a program for our young adults who work on vocational skills, life skills, and we've done a lot of work over the years expanding our program. So where we're at right now in our program is we have a business component, as you know, and there's 2 aspects of it. So one aspect of the program is an online business called the Niche Hop Shop, which is doing quite well, and we're continuing that work in the summer, so I'm super excited because some staff have continued to work and agreed to work to help the students continue to sell products and work on managing the expenses and the revenue of that. The other aspect of the program is the 1822, almost like a DoorDash food delivery, which they deliver food services to our central office, as well as we're expanding that into the community. So with outreach police and fire, and it's been a little tough with COVID, to be honest, in terms of people wanting food brought in, but folks have been fantastic in terms of opening their doors to us, letting us come in when we're able to, as well as organizations in town have allowed us to set up our shop, if you will, and advertise our products. So it's been fantastic. And we also have a spot at the Poly Arts Festival, so we're super excited about that in September. So please come and buy some of our products. So, why I'm here tonight? We have done a really fantastic job, we meaning myself, along with the high school team chair, and Katie Hibbert, the 18 to 22 coordinator, along with all the staff that work with her in that program, of really building a sense of community. So the mission and vision of the program is to foster community connections, so that these young adults will be part of their community and have made some relationships in the community, and as they work to find vocations in the surrounding town, have those relationships, long-lasting relationships. So I'm pleased to announce that we have had a local school district, parent in a local school district, reach out to me over the summer and has requested that we tuition in her child to our program. So the process when you tuition somebody in is twofold. You have to have a school committee motion to approve this. And the second aspect is you have to, assess to make sure it's a good match the student needs to our program. And so what that means is the school district submits a packet of information to me, and we look through, all of the child's needs, the young adult's needs, as well as the, the services required, and making sure we can meet those needs. And then we would set up a site visit for the person to come look at our program and talk to them, answer any questions. And then it's a mutually collaborative decision between the parent as well as the school district as to whether or not it's a right match, and if we agree. And if you agree, you enter into a contractual obligation similar to as if I were sending someone to accept collaborative. So what I did was I provided you folks with, through Dr. Kavanaugh, the motion, the legal language, which came from our council, on how to go forward with the motion. This is the first time we're doing something like this in Hopkinton, so I'm pretty excited about it. And a rate sheet, a tuition rate sheet. So let me just talk to you about how I came up with the rate sheet. So I did some research around, the collaboratives that we work with and accept primarily, looked at their rate sheet, and then I did a cost analysis in terms of staffing to work with the student in the program and any related services, OT, PT, speech, things of that nature, in case we have to do an evaluation. Because what you always want to do when you're accepting a student into a program is making sure you can really meet their needs, and they have legal entitlements to special education as anyone else with the evaluation process. And if the school district would like us to do that, I want to be able to have the capacity to do so. So develop this rate sheet with all of that in mind, and for your review and to answer any questions that you have. So I cannot move forward without a motion, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I did review the packet of information from this particular family. I did, speak with our 18 to 22 staff, and I did inform both the family and the district that on paper anyway, it looks like this might be a wonderful opportunity for this person. And next step is a site visit at our school district. I have a preliminary site visit set up, non-committal, until I hear from you folks. But so we're getting that space ready for the person to come out and take the next step.
Terrific, thank you. Questions?
So I don't have a question, but I just want to say I think it's really exciting that we have a program that you guys have built so well that it's attractive to students from other districts to want to come and join it. Mm-hmm. I would imagine it's an excellent opportunity not just for students in other districts, but also to make a nice cohort in Hopkinton for the students that we already have here.
Absolutely.
And I love to see them popping up around town and to see all the different stuff they're doing. They've done such a great job with the marketing and merchandise and everything. So congratulations to all of the students and to you and to Dr. Kavanaugh and everyone involved in making this so successful that we're attracting other students.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say the same thing. You and your team obviously have done amazing things. If you have folks from other towns looking into it, and I wanted to see how many other towns have, other than the collaboratives, have done this, and there aren't that many. So that speaks volumes about what you've been able to accomplish. And,
thank you.
And I feel like the tuition is fairly comparable to anything else you can find out there too, and comparable to the collaborative. So it's a great opportunity for hopefully for the student, but for in general. So
right.
Congratulations on all your work. That's great.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we're a little under the rate of the collaboratives, and that's intentional.
Yeah.
But we need to cover costs.
Right.
But again, the primary focus is not the money, it's the students.
Right.
And we are so excited for the community connection and the ability to, have the students just branch out, because it also opens up vocational opportunities too, in other towns to get to know our kids, so it's just so wonderful.
It's huge.
And social opportunities.
And social,
On the weekends, there are really nice cohorts of kids that'll be hanging out together.
absolutely.
And I will too.
I love the 18 to 22
Thank you.
program.
That's great, right? It's exciting.
Can I ask just a procedural question? Does this fall outside of the vote that the committee took on school choice?
It does, yes.
Because it's 18 to 22. I just want to make sure we're not in conflict with our own own vote.
Yes, I spoke with council on this because I work with council on our contracts and with all the different, 33 different districts we work with when we contract out for our 33 students, not 33 agencies, but for the 33 students we have in our district right now. But I asked that very specific question. I said, explain to me how this, competes with school choice or conflicts with school choice, and they said it's completely separate. This is like a contracted service. You are a provider providing a service, and you would engage in a contractual relationship. So it's separate. But then they provided me with that motion. Our attorney provided me with that motion that you have before you tonight, to make sure it was worded correctly to avoid any type of conflict.
And
So-
sorry.
So I'm super excited by this. I think it says a lot about how you are nurturing the students and allowing them to be able to provide for themselves, which is a huge thing for any parent with, a special needs child. One question I have, which I hate asking, but liability-wise, how does this look like as opposed to a student that is gone through our school district? Is it sort of the same sort of, insurance liability and all of that?
That's a great question, and honestly, the deeper details of that, I need to vet through the process when I go through the contract. So if tonight's vote goes through successfully, the next step in the process is I will engage in, obviously, a site visit with the family. If there's mutual agreement that the district, the sending district, and the family want the student in the program, and we agree it's a good fit after meeting the student and family, I will be working through the contract. And in the contract, there's all different types of, responsibilities, if you will, of both the school district, the sending school district. Above and beyond that, the deeper liabilities, I was informed we are covered by our insurance, and it's no different. The school district that would send the student also has responsibilities and obligations. Just like when I send a student to Accept or another organization, they're still Hopkinton's student, and all the responsibilities and liabilities lie with Hopkinton. As well as obviously the organization that's providing it, shared. So it would be the same thing in this situation. The student coming from this particular town, that organization, that town would be responsible. It's their student. They have, some responsibilities as well, fiscally and programmatically, and we would share that.
Thank you.
Student safety in mind, obviously. We always want to consider that first, but again, to the bigger picture of making these adult connections, fostering independence.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, the students are deeply involved in this process. They've been involved through every single thing that we've done. We have a student sitting on our 18 to 22 committee. They're a voice. I've visited the program on numerous occasions, talking to the kids even this summer, and having conversations about what do we want to do next. How do you guys feel about this? So they're just excited, and they're preparing for the site visit as well. So I've got them cleaning up the space, buying flowers, and getting ready. They're excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you ever anticipate intentionally seeking out partnerships with other communities if this particular one goes well?
I do. Yeah, I have a lot of vision for this program, and I know tonight's presentation isn't about my strategic plan and vision, but I will say, myself along with our 18 to 22 committee, so we have an active committee that's still going with students, parents, myself, as well as Mike Donahue, high school administration, and some members of the staff in the committee. So we're discussing always our continued vision with this, and it's obviously business and programmatic expansion. This may be the first time the committee's hearing about this because it's the summer. We do have an 18 to 22 committee meeting coming up, the very start of the school year, where I'll go through this with them, and I'm actually going to be looking to them for our deeper vision on this this, opportunity. I can't imagine that they wouldn't love the idea, because I love the idea. We've already talked about how can we get bigger, how can we buy a bigger space, and just grow, and ultimately maybe someday have students working in the program, like employment opportunities. I would love that. I would love to just build this to a point where the business is so successful and up and running that I can actually hire students that are turning 22. Because once you age out of our program, under special education law, you're now an adult in society, and you're under, other organizations like, DDS or organizations. You can work with Mass Rehab. But I would love nothing more than to be able to have some of those graduate students employed, whether it's part-time, full-time, just to do that, to keep going. So, a lot of vision, but we got a lot of work to do, and the committee is the voice as well, so.
Before we move on to the motion, and thank you very much for having this written for us, which is very helpful, I don't see any time element of the motion. So we are looking at tuition rates tonight. Mm-hmm. It's 2022. It's kind of an open motion that says that the committee is voting to authorize enrollment, not for a year. It's sort of in perpetuity. It's the way it's written. So I guess I'm wondering if it makes sense to, in the way that we revisit school choice, does it make sense to revisit it at a time interval? So that, because the way it's written, it's this set of rates for, so I'm hoping this is a hugely successful program and this goes really well. I think I love everything that you've said, but I just am a little concerned about the motion not having time in it.
Can I just?
Right, so I understand what you're saying. So does it make sense for next year at this time? You wouldn't have to approve the program, but you would have to approve the rates.
Correct.
If any of the rates were changing.
And I think that makes good sense, because the way the contracts are written in my office, so right now I'm in the middle of writing contracts, so every summer I write contracts for the next school year that I send to all the programs. So the contract we would write for this is a one-year contract. Okay. And my contracts are usually July 1 to June 30. Okay. And then I renew my contract, so it absolutely makes sense to make everybody feel comfortable to do a 1 year, because I don't want to be locked into rates too in terms of pricing increases, or if I'm working with vendors and I realize I need to revisit this.
Yeah, Georgette typically has a calendar of what to put on school committee agendas when, so it would make sense for us to just ask her to add this to July, and then annually we could look at it.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would make me feel better. It would give us the ability to not be locked into these rates.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we would, we can't really call this a pilot, because once you accept a student, you're accepting a student. But it's our first student, so we want to see how it goes.
And the rates do say FY23.
Yep.
So, you know.
Yeah.
And just as a reminder for the school committee, any rates that you approve, which would be these tonight, any change to the rate would have to be reapproved.
Okay.
So if there was any suggestion that we were going to change the rates, they would have to come back to the committee.
Yeah, and before you vote, I do want to publicly just say thank you to Karen. I think this is a vision we had probably 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
And everything in public education seems to work at a glacial kind of pace, but I'm so glad we're here, so thank you.
No, thank you. And thank you for all your support, and everybody here too, because if you remember, this program used to be at the high school, and it took a lot of work on the part of the school committee and folks in the town, parents, Dr. Kavanaugh, and all of us here to really work through this. So it's a we all deserve credit for this, but thank you for the acknowledgement. I appreciate it.
So, Susan, given what you said about a rate change, I mean, I don't want to make this more complicated than it needs to be. So are we comfortable with the motion as written, knowing that Dr. Zaleski will bring back rate changes? Is it? Okay. Would anyone like to make the motion as written?
I will. I'll move to approve, or move, well, as written in our packet. How's that?
Do you want to read it?
Sure. I move to authorize the enrollment of non-resident students in the district's transition program for students ages 18 to 22 pursuant to General Law, Chapter 76, Section 12, provided that space is available in such program, and to approve the schedule of tuition rates for such enrollment as submitted to this meeting.
Good. Motion by Jen. Second by Leah. We need a roll call vote because we have a remote participant. So how do you vote, Holly?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Leah?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much for bringing this
you.
forward.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's very exciting.
It
Yeah.
is.
You have to let us know if this actually comes to, you know,
Oh, absolutely.
your bread.
Yes, we're very excited. We're hoping word gets out, right? As the student
Great.
goes back to the community and,
Yep.
so, yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe we should have your kids come to a meeting later on in the year,
would
just
be
to show their wares.
amazing.
That would be really
good
nice.
idea.
That would be
We would
phenomenal.
love that.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
great. Great idea. Thank you.
They bring enough, maybe we'll buy some.
Bring 5 of everything.
Probably ask us to go too, though.
Yep. Have a
Thank
good
you very
night.
much. Have a good night.
Good night.
Dr. Kavanaugh, we're up to the special town meeting,
Okay.
marathon school report.
All right, so this is our report on the 4 classroom edition and special town meeting. I will just walk you quickly through the timeline. You remember that the Marathon School opened in August of 2018. Since that time, the Family Resource Center has become a special education room. The professional learning community room is now used for ESOL instruction and some adult work. The health room is part of the preschool. The art room is a first grade classroom. We have small group instruction taking place in the hallways, and even the small library classroom within the library space is being used for something else now. So while all of this was happening, we realized we were going to need the 4 classroom edition, and so in May of 2021, annual town meeting appropriated for us $3,625,000, and then we realized in May of 2022 we probably had to go back to the well, and annual town meeting again was gracious enough to appropriate $695,900, and that brought us to a total of $320,900, and then we got our bids, and Mill City was the lowest bidder, and this bid covers only construction, and their bid was $3,992,152. So at that point, we realized that our project total was $5,170,900, and we had a shortfall of $850,000. And so we went to the select board just last week on July 12th, and we requested a special town meeting, and they voted to approve our request. One of the things I think I'd like to just use this slide is to kind of put things into perspective, and Lauren DeBow had written something for us a couple of weeks ago, and I would just like to take some excerpts from the piece that she had written. One of the things that she reminded us of is that during the actual construction of the Marathon Elementary School, so back in 2015, the enrollment certification for Elmwood Marathon was 355 students, and that was for the K-1 kids. And so partway through that construction project, they were able to increase the certification to 395 students for K-1. And we thought that that was pretty marvelous. We thought, this is really great. We're going to, I guess have the capacity for more students. So only a few short years later, this year, and from the slide that we showed earlier tonight, we have 275 kindergarten students coming in and 293, and those were our numbers today on July 21st, which is a total of 568 kids, well beyond the number 395 that was sort of the proposed capacity at the time. The other thing, when they were building that school, is we had 58 preschool students, and so if you round up to about 60, that's sort of where we were, and today we're at 95 kids. So you can really just see how many more kids we have in the Marathon Elementary School in a very, very short period of time. So we've gone from 395 capacity to 568, and 58 preschool kids to 95. All right, and I will ask Mrs. Rothermick to explain the increase in construction costs.
So again, referring back to where we were from the original vote in May of 21 to where we ended up asking for more money in May of, I apologize, back up one year, where we asked for more money in May of 22. No, I was right, yeah. So what has happened is, as you go further down the line in terms of drilling down into your actual construction documents. So the first piece is the schematic design. The cost estimate came in at $2 million, or we started at a cost estimate construction of $2,720,000, which was about $388 a square foot. When we put together the first piece of design, the schematic design, and looked at the estimates, it came in at $3,115,000. So you can see that our costs started to go up as we continued to design the building. We looked also at the high school addition because that was the most recent bids that we had received for construction, and then escalated that out 15%. And that's where we came up with that additional funding request of $695,000, thinking that that additional funding would be able to get us through adding on to our original cost. So that was in December of '21. And that was in preparation for the May of '22 town meeting. When we got to February of '22, so prior to even asking for the $695,000, and we went further in design, we're getting into construction. Our construction budget, when we were doing cost estimates, continued to rise again, and we were up to $3,258,000, so $465 a square foot. And again, as you continue to design the building, we use two cost estimators. One that is a cost estimator for our OPM, Colliers, and one that is by the architect, DRA. So each company had their cost estimator look at the documents and come up with their costs. So, and then we would have a reconciliation meeting. So at that time, we realized that the $695,000 was not going to be enough, but what we started to do was play with the budget. So we took some of the furniture, fixture, and equipment, FF&E, and moved it up into the construction line. And we also looked at our contingency and moved a little bit of that up. So we thought we would still be okay and didn't want to continue to change that number. When we got to April, again, the number continued to climb, and we still looked at just playing with the budget, thinking that we would have time to request additional funds for the FF&E through the FY '23-24 operating budget. So we had a plan and a strategy to still work within that $695,000. And then so again, looking back kind of at the history, we looked at actual construction bids that came in. We used the high school addition, which was our most recent experience with construction bidding. We asked for that additional $695,000 in May. We already knew that the budget was going to be tight, and we had already moved budget line items around to try to make it work within that $695,000. And again, as we do these documents, we're always looking to those two different cost estimators. And if one comes up with one number and one comes up with another number, we reconcile just to make sure that both are seeing the same thing in the documents. So making sure that we're estimating the same thing.
So, when you get those quotes from your two cost estimators, you put a lot of faith, I think, in the fact that you've had two independent cost estimators come up with the numbers. And so when we reached back out to them and said, why do you think we're sort of so far off? You can see, just sort of quoted material from both of them, construction pricing is rising at a dramatic pace. I suspect the overage is due in large part to increased construction costs and fuel prices. One of them noted that delaying the project will probably only add to the construction cost. And from looking at the numbers of students that we have, that our situation is a little bit dire. And so to sort of prolong this, it doesn't make good sense educationally, but it also doesn't seem to make good sense financially. And at present, we really don't know when construction prices are going to settle back down. DRA's estimator indicated that they've seen sharp increases in steel, metal deck, cold rolled metal framing, and drywall, and that right now there's a general uneasiness about the market, with interest rates rising sharply, gas prices rising to record levels, and labor shortages leaving contractors unsure of their costs. So as we stated, on July 12th, we went to the select board and they voted to approve for the schools, a special town meeting, which will be held on August 18th, 2022. And so tonight, what we're asking you to do is to approve an article for the warrant for the special town meeting. And then also approving, should that pass, allowing Chair Nancy Kavanaugh and I to send that off to the select board.
So for the public at home again, just to make it clear, like what we're asking for is to be able to get that money out of the fund that we got from the Pulte Homes contracts, right?
I think you'll see that as part of the actual warrant article.
Yeah, I just wanted to like
Yes.
make a very clear statement for any parents listening right now that that's what we're doing, right? We're not asking for additional funding from a budget standpoint. We're not going to raise taxes. It's not right.
Questions or comments?
No, it's very straightforward.
Yeah.
Nancy,
I feel like unfortunate, but straightforward.
Yes, unfortunate is right.
Nancy, did you have any questions or comments?
I do not, thank you.
I don't know if you said this, but in terms of the urgency, did you talk about the holding the bid till the?
No, but I can. So the way that bid documents, when we put it out to bid for our general contractors and all our sub-bids, according to the bid document, they need to hold their submitted bid for 30 days. So that takes us to August 4th. That by law, they have to hold their bid until August 4th. After that, by law, they do not have to hold their bid. We have reached out to Mill City and our low sub-file bidders and asked them if they would be willing to hold their bid until the end of August while we work through this process. And they have all indicated that they are willing to do that. But just as a reminder, by law, they are not legally bound to what they say on the phone or in an email.
Thank you. But it does, if anyone's wondering why are we cramming a special town meeting in August, it's because we are trying to avoid further inflation of cost and delaying this and having the whole process of going out to bid again. As I understand it, we would incur more cost with our project estimators and our contractors to go through the whole process again. Just the administrative cost plus very likely the price tag would go up.
Yes, and the other thing is there's obviously a construction timeline, so because of this, we'll be a little bit delayed, and so one of the concerns is that next September 1st, we would love to have these classrooms open for marathon students coming in, and at this point, there's no guarantee of that. So the faster we work now, the better shot we have of getting those classrooms open to kids.
And if you'd like, I could put that slide up again, which shows the change of cost of doing that now versus waiting until spring, just in terms of cost.
Yeah. One question that Amanda's question brought up. If they're not legally bound to hold the bid, and we're asking for $850, that takes us to the lowest bid, correct? Or does that give us any wiggle room?
So that takes us to our low bid, but it also puts back our budget. So it's putting back the budget for the FF&E and it's putting back the budget for the contingency. Because remember, as we were looking at the costs and costs were rising, we were robbing from all those lines. So this $850 puts us back with a budget that we should have had, but it is with the low bidder.
Okay, so my question is, hopefully, the bids stay, but if something happens and we need to move to one of the other bidders, let's say, would we then play with the budget again? Is that the thought? Like there's enough wiggle room in the budget that we'd be able to play with it again to meet?
We would probably have to do that again, but we would have to bring it back to you either way because you would then have to approve a new general contractor contract.
Okay.
Is there a significant delta between the lowest and the next lowest?
So I said I could put these slides up and I lied because I actually don't seem to have a display. This is a new computer, so not everything's there.
I was just wondering if it was like in the thousands or the hundreds of thousands for
Hundreds of
different,
thousands.
like, I don't,
It was a lot.
In between.
Yeah.
You remember.
It was last meeting you showed us, I think, and at the select board, I think you showed us. too,
Yeah,
And it was a
I
lot.
can-
So
do it.
so we'd be in
the,
trouble if we
yeah.
lost our bidder.
Mill City, their bid was $3,992,000. The next bidder in line is Seaver Construction at $4,043,000.
Oh, yeah,
So,
that's the difference.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we transitioning to the next item on the agenda, which is the proposed warrant article? Are we, because I know you had raised some topics, do we want to transition or do we have more conversation about, well, we have a slide.
There it
So
is.
that slide right there illustrates the different bids.
Yeah.
And then Mrs. Rothmick was just talking about this slide right here.
Right. So, just to be clear, again, we talked a little bit about the timeline of why we're doing it now and trying to hold to the existing bidders that we have, and that's that project overage of the $850,000. If we were to wait and push this to the Springtown meeting, understanding capacity aside, because capacity at Marathon will be another issue, but waiting, what we would need to do is add 10% to the average GC bid, so that's an increase of $500,000. Additional time for the OPM and the architect to pre-qual and rebid, another $60,000. Advertising, $1,500. Bid hosting fee, $8,000. Cost estimators, again, we would utilize at $35,000. So those additional costs of $605,000 would then be added on to the $850,000. So waiting until spring would have us at a $1.4 million request of increased funding. And again, time-wise, for having this for students for Marathon goes way out.
Yeah.
So it's a two-pronged issue. You're asking, it would be a big increase in cost.
Right.
And
Thank you for answering my question.
for community members who are probably, maybe wondering, maybe not wondering about this particular set of increases because we are all living through inflation and gas prices, and people who are working in these industries are facing labor shortages and supply chain challenges. So I think this is just a tragic reality that for now. But going back to the slide where you mentioned the original build being undersized for the population at the time, the MSBA had a different approach to how they built. They built to existing population, and it was quite a coup, I think, that we had even an additional amount of students built in, a small number, but an additional buffer built in. Since our project, as I understand it, the MSBA has changed their approach so that they are now allowing projections, and in fact, working on projections as we are experiencing with our Elmwood project. So, it's not that we didn't know we had all these people moving into town. Our hands were tied back when we were building Marathon, and, we're still kind of catching up,
So for the Elmwood project, we can build the school like we need, not
Correct.
the school we want. not
to
the way we
project.
need.
For
Right.
Elmwood, there's like an average 10-year projection
That's
that
excellent.
they're
That's
working
awesome.
towards, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with Marathon, we weren't allowed.
You could only vote, just for the kids that live in town right now. That's what you had to vote. Oh, gosh, that's terrible.
So
I'm
the
glad
one-
they changed how
So,
they.
Yep, Nancy.
Go ahead, Nancy, go.
so I was just gonna say, this is obviously pressing both, with the financial piece, looking at the increase if we had to wait a year, but also programmatically with all the students coming in and needing the space. The one thing I think that we want to really try to get the word out is that we need to make quorum for the special town meeting and to really push that out to make people aware of if people don't show up for the special town meeting, we're not going to be able to take advantage of what we have in place to both for the cost savings and the time to get that programmatic space up and running for our Marathon students. So August 18th for the special town meeting would be my plug, but also to look back at the school stabilization fund that's in the warrant, and I guess I am transitioning ahead, but for those that remember when that was created a couple of years ago, this is really exactly the kind of thing that this money was set aside for, was for growth-related pieces. It wasn't intended to be an operational fix to stuff, and we have really held on to this money to use carefully and for projects which really fit both the intended use, but also to be really careful at not spending it down too quickly and saving it for as it's needed.
Yes, so we are now on agenda item
Yep.
D under here. Yes, new business D, the proposed warrant article. And just the, so August 18th, special town meeting, quorum, I believe, is 128, which, or thereabouts, which sounds like a very low number, but if you attended town meeting in the spring, you know we had to stop the town meeting at multiple times because we lost quorum and were unable to continue and do the business of the town, which is passing budget. So this absolutely cannot go through without at least, at least 130 or so people attending. And it's August 18th, it'll be in the evening, 7 o'clock.
Right, and it should be a very fast town meeting.
Yeah.
It should not be like the 3-hour, et cetera. So,
May only be one warrant article, who knows?
Yeah, so if we even just get, a group of parents who are part of Marathon to come in, we should have quorum.
Yeah,
hopefully. So
People with babies.
we would appreciate it.
So Dr. Kavanagh, do you want to talk about the proposed warrant article?
Sure. So, just so you know, I did meet with Nancy and Amanda after we had received the majority of this language from our legal counsel. We did talk about using the school stabilization money, and as Nancy and Leah have both said, that's what that money was for. It was really to address increased enrollment, and that's what we have seen at the Marathon School. So it does say $850,000 from the school stabilization fund or other available funds for payment of increased costs related to the Marathon School Addition project. It's very clear that we have been to town meeting twice previous, so we wanted that in there for full transparency, and it covers any planning, design, engineering, construction, or associated costs. And the sum of money, because that was the intent also of the Legacy Farms money, it would be spent under the purview of the school committee, but it does need to move out of the stabilization fund at annual town meeting or special town meeting by 2/3 vote.
And just because we move it doesn't mean it will be spent if gas prices plummet to $2 a gallon next week.
correct.
We might not spend it all, but we need to have it to accept the bid. Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Upham, do you have a report for us on the balance of that account? Can the account accommodate the $850,000?
It can. I don't know the amount off the top of my head.
Oh, I might, 'cause you asked me the other day, or I asked you the other day.
Yeah, I think we've spoken
I want to say
about-
it's over 3 million.
I think it's 3.9 or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we've spoken about spending it, but I don't think we ever have actually.
We have. We spent a little bit with the high school edition, I believe, did we not?
We, I'd have to look at the account activity.
A little bit.
To be honest.
Okay,
But I think it's $3,059,946.
thank you.
Approximately.
I motion to approve the warrant article as written.
Second. Do we need to read it?
I was gonna say, do we need to read it? I think we need to read this one.
I
do want to have it.
Sure, I will do it. I move the approval of the proposed language for warrant article for the special town meeting. And do I have to read the whole article?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Article blank, to see if the town will vote to appropriate or transfer the sum of $850,000 from the school department stabilization fund or other available funds for the payment of increased costs related to the Marathon School Addition project. Such sum to be in addition to appropriations approved by the vote of the 2021 annual town meeting pursuant to Article 17 of said town meeting's warrant, and approved by the vote of the 2022 annual town meeting pursuant to Article 29 of said town meeting's warrant, including any planning, design, engineering, construction, or associated costs or expenses related thereto. Said sum to be spent under the direction of the school committee, pass any vote, or take any act relative thereto.
Motion by Leah, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Jen, and we'll do a roll call vote. Holly?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Leah?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
And I'm an aye, and that passes unanimously. And we have one more piece of business for the town meeting, I believe, and that's warrant vote.
Yes,
Article,
all we are
yeah.
asking you to do is to allow Nancy and me to submit the article to the select board for special town meeting.
Yes, I move to approve to submit that as select board, to the select board for the town, one article to be included in the warrant for the special town meeting to be held on August 18th, 2022. Such article to be submitted by the superintendent and chair of the school committee on behalf of the school committee and to be substantially in the form reviewed by the school committee at this meeting. It's a lot of reading this.
It
this
is.
meeting.
Very good, right there.
Second.
All right, so motion by Jen, second by Leah, and again, roll call vote. Holly?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Leah?
Aye.
Nancy?
Yes.
And I'm an aye as well, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much for your rapid work, and thank you to the select board and the town manager and the town CFO and the army of people who are helping us address this urgent need for our youngest learners. So thank you. Okay. Oh, we have one more marathon conversation. Ms. Rotherman, Marathon General Contractor.
Thank you. So, in an effort to continue to move this process along, what I am bringing to you this evening is the recommendation to approve the bid for Mill City Construction as the low responsible and eligible bidder, as recommended by our owner's project manager, Colliers. When prior to going out to bid, they also pre-qualified all the general bidders, so only bidders that went through the pre-qual process were allowed to bid. So we already knew who was eligible, and they already did their research even before we received the bids. When we received the low bid of Mill City, then they also did their reference checks. They confirmed their similar project experience. They look at their DCAM rating. And they basically deemed that they are both the low responsible and eligible bidder for the marathon project. So we're looking to have you approve that bid, and we can sign the contract pending additional funding.
Thank you. And I know in the packet, there's a nice outline of those checks that were done.
Correct.
And appreciate the due diligence. Are there any questions? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move to approve Mill City as the general contractor for the marathon edition pending additional funding.
Okay. Motion by Holly,
I'll second.
second by Jen, and we'll do a roll call vote. Holly?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Leah?
Aye.
Nancy?
Yes.
And I'm an aye as well, and that passes. And again, thank you very much for your work on
Yes.
all of this.
Yeah.
On to happy news. Let's see, we have Elmwood School Gift Account. We've only over $850,000.
Happy news. Yes, so thanks to the trustees of the school. They have donated or given the Elmwood School $5,218 in order for Elmwood to purchase 10 Allied Imagination Station dry erase rectangular tables for our library. And if you've Googled it, you can see the kids are just sitting around with dry erase markers and doing all kinds of writing and drawing and talking and collaborating. So it's a really neat tool for our kids, and I'm excited for them.
I live for a whiteboard, so if it's a table that's a whiteboard, I'm just going to go to Elmwood and hang out. Any questions?
No,
That's
those sound
fantastic.
awesome. I'm happy that they're gonna get those.
You want to make a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the Elmwood, the gift, $5,218 for the Elmwood gift account.
Motion by Jen,
Second.
second by Holly, and roll call vote. Holly?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Leah?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much, and I'm excited for the kids.
Awesome.
Okay, Nancy, this brings us up to you. Sorry, we're a little behind schedule without your able leadership here. School committee goals, 2022-23.
I will be very brief. We had a great workshop with Tony Bench. Was that just this past Saturday? It feels longer ago than that. And we started the foundation to do our school committee goals. We did not quite get there, so I was going to propose that we go ahead and push that off until September to actually do that. That'll give the admin team a time to look at the stuff that we did, and then for us to kind of come back to it once we've gotten through those kind of crazy end of the summer, first couple weeks of school. So that is my suggestion.
Discussion? Works for me.
Yeah, it works for me.
Anybody? Yeah.
A lot of nodding,
All right.
Nancy.
Yep.
So we don't need to vote on that, we just agree that we'll come back after the admin team has done their goals, and we're staying again. Dr. Kavanaugh, that brings us to items by consensus.
Okay, Superintendent, I recommend the school committee approve the items by consensus as outlined in your agenda.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion by Leah, second by Jen, roll call vote. Holly? Jen?
Yes.
Leah?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, and that brings us to adjournment. Is there a
Who wants to
motion?
make that motion? Go ahead.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion by Holly, second by Jen. Holly?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Leah?
Aye.
Nancy?
Yes.
And I'm an aye as well, and we are adjourned, and our next meeting, I believe, is coming up in August. It's not on here, but I think, is it August 7th or 8th?
April 8th, I mean August 8th.
August 8th.
Listen to me. August 8th.
Our next meeting is
Sometimes-
August 8th. Thank you all for watching.
And it's a Monday, which is unusual for us.
Yes.
That's right.
Right. Both of our